belt printing is essentially the muzzle end of the holster showing through your pants. This is predominantly a female problem because women's pants are often designed to hug this part of the body closely, whereas men's clothing tends to leave plenty of fabric in this area. That said, this absolutely can be a real concealment problem for guys out there too. It's just generally less common. This printing problem breaks down into 3 main categories: concealment principles, gear selection, and clothing choice. Which leads me into the first section for solving below the belt printing: concealment mechanics. The first way we can start to solve this problem is by placing the gun on our body in our concealment sweet spot. We want to start by reevaluating where our gun is placed in relation to our peaks, valleys, and even our bone structure. If you haven't watched our video about peaks and valleys or followed up by watching our poke and check video, I would encourage you to watch those next. Maybe even pause this video right here and come back to it after watching those videos. Don't worry, they're also linked down in the description box below. If your gun is placed on a peak, then printing below or above the belt line will be more exaggerated than if the gun were placed in a valley. So if below the belt printing is your primary printing problem, that might mean that you need to move your gun up slightly on your body and or choose a mid-rise pant over a high-rise or low-rise pant. Very rarely am I going to recommend a low-rise pant as it may cause other concealment problems, but pants that are too high-rise can also cause these issues. I would highly recommend finding a good happy medium. This usually means finding pants that meet your waist right at or just below your navel. For most women, this should fall between an 8 to 10 inch rise. Next, we'll talk about how gear selection plays a role in solving or creating below the belt printing. So here I have 2 different holster profiles with different design features. On one end of the spectrum, we have an ambidextrous holster with a built-in wedge on both sides. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have an ultra low profile holster with no clip blocking or built-in wedge and a rounded muzzle. The built-in wedge is designed to increase comfort for all-day wear while also increasing grip and slide tuck, but it does add more material below the belt, which will inevitably show if we don't have enough gapping between our body and our clothing. For this reason, you'll want to avoid holsters with built-in wedges if below the belt printing is a persistent issue for you. Although minor, you might also want to avoid holsters with clip blocking on the lower end of the holster, as these inorganic lines may show through your pants and cause visible printing. I'd also like to recommend against going too far in the low profile direction and discourage you from reaching for a holster that does not have any hard material covering the muzzle of the gun. I understand how we might think the less material the better, but in this instance, removing a section of the holster altogether can not only increase discomfort and make holstering safely more difficult, but it can also create an inorganic shape that will print through tight-fitting pants or leggings. Gun selection can also play a role in below the belt printing. We already know that gun size plays a role in concealment success in general, but keep in mind that this applies for below the belt printing also. For example, this Bodyguard 2.0 doesn't show any signs of below the belt printing in these pants. That's partially due to the overall size of the gun, but I would also say it's specifically because of how thin the slide itself is. Notice the slight difference in below the belt signature with this Glock 42. They're nearly identical in size, but the Bodyguard 2.0 is slightly shorter and slightly thinner than the 42. These small measurements can make a really big difference. If below the belt printing continues to be a problem even after working with placement and low profile holster designs, then you might have to start considering clothing or fabric choices. Obviously, wearing a looser fitting pant could be a potential solution here, but fitted pants are a staple in a lot of our wardrobes. My goal with this video is to help you navigate possible solutions outside of selecting a loose fitting pant. Stretchy clothing materials like leggings or stretchy jeans often exaggerate below the belt printing because they tend to form around every curve and corner of the holster. So to solve this problem, you can try to reach for pants with a higher percentage of cotton in them. Generally, the higher the cotton content, the less stretchy the garment will be, and the less likely it will be to conform to the shape of the holster. Another option could be wearing a fitted undergarment to help smooth out the lines created by the holster, but be careful not to use something that's too tight, as this could not only cause pain, but it can also direct the muzzle angle into the body. Next, keep in mind that your pant rise may be playing a role, as we discussed earlier. And finally, the most simple solution to hide any leftover below the belt printing is to simply wear a shirt that is long enough to cover the section of the holster that's printing. So to recap, in order to tackle the dreaded below the belt printing, I would recommend you start by reevaluating your concealment sweet spot and ensuring your gun is not placed on a peak. Next, consider adjusting your gear with with a low profile holster. And finally, adjust your clothing by choosing structured fabrics that can help disguise the shape of your holster and ensure your pant rise isn't causing issues by being too low or too high. And that brings me to the end of this video. Don't forget to leave any of your comments or questions down below, and check out the resources mentioned in this video down in the description box below.